We tell ourselves that because we are human, our humanity has value. We believe that the nuances of our judgment, our empathy, and our lived experience are things a company actually wants. For 4 years, I believed that lie. I worked as a senior claims adjuster for a massive national health insurance provider. From the outside, it sounds like the most boring, bureaucratic job on earth. Pushing digital paper, checking boxes. But when you actually do the work, when you are the person opening those files, you realize you are looking at the worst days of people's lives. A file isn't just data. It's a mother who needs a specific oncology scan approved. It's a father who fell off a roof and needs physical therapy covered so he can walk his daughter down the aisle. To do the job right, you have to read between the lines. You have to look at the medical codes, piece together the tragedy, and find the pathway to get them the help they need within the confines of the policy. It requires thought. It requires pausing, staring at the screen, and letting your human brain process a human problem. I was good at it. I was a top performer. I closed cases, but I closed them correctly. I thought that meant I was indispensable. Then the ground shifted. We were acquired by a massive private equity firm. The CEO changed. The middle managers were quietly phased out. And one Tuesday morning, an email went out to all remote employees about a mandatory infrastructure and security upgrade. 3 days later, a cold, heavy cardboard box arrived on my porch. Inside was a brand new, high-end corporate laptop. The memo inside said we were required to use this new hardware for all company business, effective immediately to ensure compliance. They didn't tell us it was a digital leash. The changes were subtle at first. A tiny, unclosable shield icon appeared in the bottom right corner of the taskbar. Then, the little green light next to the webcam started flickering on. Just for a second. Then off. Then on again, and hours later. Then came the rollout of the productivity dashboard. Suddenly, my job was no longer about helping sick people. My job was about appeasing an algorithm. Every morning at 8:00 a.m., the dashboard sent us a focus score. The software logged every single keystroke. It tracked the micro movements of the mouse. It used the webcam to track our eye movements to ensure we were physically looking at the screen. If your eyes drifted away from the monitor for more than 60 seconds, if you stopped typing to read a complex medical history, the screen would violently flash yellow. Time off task detected. Please resume workflow. Do you know what happens to a human mind when it is treated like a biological machine? It breaks. And then it adapts in the most cynical way possible. Within a month, the entire culture of the company rotted from the inside out. thinking became a punishable offense. If you paused to consider a complex case, your focus score dropped into the red. If you dropped into the red for 3 days, you got an automated warning from HR. So we stopped being human. We stopped caring about the names on the files. People figured out that the algorithm couldn't tell the difference between good work and garbage work. It only understood motion. My colleagues started randomly clicking their mice on empty spaces. They would type gibberish into a notepad app while reading a file just to keep their keystrokes per minute high. We were terrified rats in a digital maze, performing pointless tricks to keep the yellow flashing screen away. The quality of our work plummeted. Claims were denied that should have been approved. Mistakes skyrocketed. But the metrics, the precious, sterile data on the executive dashboard, it looked fantastic. Efficiency was up 30%. The machine was training us to be worse at our jobs, but better at being robots. The breaking point came in mid-November. It was a Tuesday. The rain was beating against the window of my home office. My 5-year-old son was home from school with a brutal stomach bug. My wife was at the pharmacy getting medication, so it was just me, the dashboard, and a quiet house. At 1:15 p.m., my office door creaked open. My son was standing there, pale, holding his stomach, crying silently. In that exact second, I was looking at a massive, complex file. I had kept my keystrokes up. My focus score was a perfect 98%. But looking at my crying kid, none of that mattered. I took off my headset. I stood up from the ergonomic chair. I walked across the room, picked up my son, and held him. I felt his fever radiating against my chest. I told him he was going to be okay. I carried him back to his bed, tucked him in, and got him a glass of water. It took exactly 4 minutes. 4 minutes of being a father. 4 minutes of being a human variable that the algorithm could not account for. I walked back into my office and sat down at the desk. I reached for the mouse to wake up the screen. The screen didn't wake up. It was locked. A solid, impenetrable gray box covered the center of the monitor. There was no phone call from a manager. There was no human being on the other end asking if everything was all right. There was only a system-generated prompt. It read, "Access revoked." Time off task exceeded the mandatory daily threshold. Your employment has been terminated effective immediately for metric noncompliance. A severance packet has been dispatched to your personal email. I sat in the silence of my house, staring at my own reflection in the dark monitor. I wasn't fired by a person. I wasn't fired by someone who knew I was a top performer. I wasn't fired by someone who could understand context or empathy or the simple reality of a sick child. fired by a line of code. I was executed by a math equation that looked at a 4-minute gap in keystrokes and decided I was stealing company time. They don't want us anymore. They don't want the human variable. They want the illusion of humanity, powered by the relentless, unblinking obedience of a machine. We thought the robots would come to take our jobs. But the truth is much darker. The robots didn't take our jobs. They just became our bosses. And the second you act like a human being, the machine throws you away.